going to be drawing portraits with only pen for the next 4 days. Does it ever happen to you that when you make art, you're caught in this constant indecisiveness of what you're drawing and how you're drawing it? And because of this, you've always found that drawing with only pen as just impossible or too daunting to undertake. What if you gave up on the eraser and just started drawing with pen? Would you become automatically more accurate over time because you can't erase? This is exactly what we are going to try and find out with this challenge. Drawing a pen portrait is a slightly different than drawing with pencil. The main strategy over here is to just block in the general proportions of the face without making as many lines as usual. We started out with just drawing in right away the shape of the person's face from the reference photo, which is really different from what I usually do, and which is to just start out with drawing a circle and then, going through that whole process of drawing in the proportions of the face. Basically, what you do is just kind of mentally picture it, if that makes sense. I must admit that I really did struggle with this part because I made multiple mistakes and it was like, oh, I can't erase that. And you just have to work with it. That's how it goes. Once you draw in where your facial features are on the portrait, dive right in and shade in the main shadow areas. And in this case of this portrait, it was half of the face. It really gives you a sense of the portrait itself as a realistic portrait because suddenly the face becomes 3D. Now, this is the first time I'm ever drawing a serious piece with pen, so we're really figuring this out as we go. It's starting to look a little dark and messy. That's just I guess a given when you're learning. But right now we're trying to shade in the planes of the face, put in the ear. The guy has to hear, right? Somehow. And now we're going in with the hair. And this part was trying to figure out where the head was a little challenging because you can't have a head that's way too big for the face, but I have to say that this part was pretty fun. You just look at the reference photo, chill, and draw what you see. One of my biggest tips is to turn, your critical brain off and just draw what you see. So if you see a certain shape, draw it in. It doesn't matter if it's on the shirt, or it doesn't really matter what it is you're drawing. Just draw in these certain shapes. Look at a portrait as a ton of shapes. On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you in drawing portraits? What is it that you're struggling with? Leave me a comment of this down below so in the future I'll know what to help you with in upcoming videos. And also, every comment really, really helps push out this video to the algorithm, and that's also really, really helpful. So thank you so much. Our first portrait in this ink challenge is coming to a close. It's almost done. It is for a first portrait, it's not bad. It's pretty dark and stuff and might not look exactly like the reference photo, but it's a start. It definitely is a start. Now for this one, the main difference right away is that I changed the pen. I'm using this like a thinner ballpoint pen because the first one was really thick and meaty. I'm going in with lighter lines and trying to take your time with the strokes because before, when you rush just to draw something in just for the sake of drawing it in, it starts to look more and more messy and you make more mistakes. Because once you draw with pen, you can't just grab an eraser and erase it. If before you would just play around and see, I'll draw a couple lines and then erase whichever ones I don't like, with pen that's not possible. So you have to think multiple moments before you put down a stroke. So that is the main thing we're trying to do with this portrait, and it made such a huge difference. I can't wait for you to see that. When I draw portraits, I like to draw in all the features on the face right away instead of and just simultaneously shade them in little by little. This way your shading ends up balanced on all the facial features and you can just upkeep this sense of balance throughout your portrait. And by balance, I mean how dark certain parts of a portrait are compared to others, and in what place. So if like one side of the portrait is a little darker, maybe you need to balance that darkness with the hair on the other side of the portrait. So it helps maintain when your eye looks at the painting, it feels good, you know? Are you enjoying this video? If so, then excellent, because I have a ton of content like this coming out soon, so you really wouldn't want to miss that. And it's also great support for me, wink wink, so thank you so much. Now I'm drawing in the hair, and this time we're going to keep it a little more simple than the previous portrait, because that was a lot of ink we wasted. So here it's more general, and we're making general locks. And again, shapes. We're looking at shadow shapes, shadow areas, where the highlights are, and not every single individual strand. This way, actually, your hair looks so much more realistic when you draw it. I found that when you significantly darken a part of a portrait, and in this case it's the hair, you're going to end up having to tweak some things on the face itself. You're going to adjust the darkest points in your face to achieve that balance between light and dark. Okay, so here is the final look on our second portrait in this drawing challenge, and it took me 20 minutes. So we're going to see if we can do it faster. This drawing I did on the same day. I was unsatisfied with how long it took me to draw that portrait. I mean, 19 minutes is good, but I wanted to try faster. I wanted to try maybe under 15 minutes. The reference photo I chose for this portrait was a side view, and it was so difficult. Oh my goodness. I wanted to try and give myself a challenge with this side view portrait, and oh my gosh. Do you ever struggle with this one part in your drawing process, or one type of thing in art? It could be like a facial feature, it could be a creature, or whatever it is you draw. I think it's like certain angles just don't click in my head, and this is one of those angles. So of course it didn't turn out really accurate, but this drawing really taught me a lot, and you'll see soon. Whenever you do a art challenge, it's so interesting to see your progress, and you see that progress, you start to see that how progress isn't linear at all. So compared to the portrait before this one, I was like, after that the second portrait, I was like, whoa, this is really good compared to the first. Wow, you know, a win is a win. And I'm like, I want to do another one. I really want to do another one. And this one didn't really turn out as much. So it just goes to show that not everything is going to go smoothly. It's really cool to see how over time everything gets better. Now this drawing took me 13 minutes, which is a much shorter amount of time than 20. Okay, I think I just figured something out. So I have trouble drawing male faces. It's always been that way. And so recently I've been doing these portraits to try to figure out what's wrong. And before I thought making a stronger jawline was the trick, but you see this person? This guy has a strong jawline over here, but somehow he still looks very feminine. So then I just started on these portraits, right? And this over here is actually a woman on the reference photo. But when I drew her, she kind of looks like a man. And I was thinking why. And I realized, and I was just wondering why. And I moved on to the next portrait, which is this guy. And when I was drawing him, no matter how much I tried, he looks so female. And I think the secret lies in the chin. So look at this guy. well, this actually woman, but he looks like a guy. She looks like a guy. Look, see the prominent chin? Once I cover up that chin, suddenly she looks very feminine. However, yeah, when I take away this pen, it's a man again. Now on this one, when I was drawing this one, you can see over here I have 2 chins actually. This is where I extended the chin to try out my theory, because while drawing this one, this was the chin and it looked very feminine. I was like, what is going on? And so I tested it out and look at the difference. You see that? Female, male, female, male. So it's the chin, I think. And that's a really cool discovery. Okay, so let's officially test this theory out. So I chose a reference photo off of Pinterest, and it's a front view. So this guy actually has longer hair. So I wanted to test out to see if we could possibly make him look as he is, which is he's a very like male, not male, but like masculine, but he does have longer hair. And so I wanted to see if our theory about the chin is true and he'll still look masculine even with his longish hair. I made sure to take my sweet time with this portrait because I really wanted it to look good. I have to say that doing this challenge made me really excited to open my sketchbook and start drawing, because I don't know, when you see your progress and you're just interested in the end result, you're interested to see how far you can go. And this discovery with the chin, I was ecstatic, I'll be honest, because I think we're onto something here. I really think we're onto something. The lighting on this portrait is a little interesting and intense. The lower half of the face is really cast in shadow. It's really dark. And I was trying, you don't want it to look like he has a humongous beard. So I was trying to figure it out as I went. And one thing I'm trying to be mindful of here is the direction of the strokes that I am drawing. This is all in an effort to learn the best secrets of how to make your pen portraits look the least messy. Usually when I draw in portraits, I draw in the eyes last because I find that eyes are the windows into the soul, and when you draw in the eyes straight off right away, they get distracting, I find, and you can't really focus on the rest of the portrait because the eyes are just staring at you, and maybe it's just me. Comment down below if you have the same thing, or if you have any other unique ways of drawing things that are not standard. I'd love to hear. Right now we are finishing off the face with a bit of darker shading where things need to be darker, and apparently in shadows they're darker shadows and they're lighter shadows. So shadows are very two-dimensional, I found, and it's really fascinating how dark has so much depth to it. I'm finding that a way to keep your drawings clean with pen is to pick up your pen every time you draw strokes. So for shadows, when you have to fill in a certain area, pick up your pen. Don't drag it back and forth to create this triangle up and down connected line thing. Instead, every time you draw a stroke, you pick up. Every time you change direction of your pen, you just pick up. So you're left with a bunch of parallel lines. And I found that this really succeeds in making your art look more put together, and your strokes look more intentional that way. As you can see, we're starting to draw in the hair, and my approach for drawing in the hair is first blocking in the general shape of how the hair lies around the head, and only then do we fill it in. You heard me before talk about locks and drawing hair in general locks instead of individual strands. And a way to go about that is just to make lines where the roots are in the beginning, and then more where the piece of the lock of hair just ends, and so draw lines also up towards the roots, and then you can just connect them or make them darker. I hope that makes sense. Now we're filling in the eyes, and like I told you before, we do this last, and look how the portrait really comes alive. It's really incredible what eyes can do. After that, all that's left is to add in a couple more details and darken some parts, and then here's the final result of the head of day 3. I don't know about you, but I think we're steadily making progress. And now we're on to day 4, and for this portrait, I'm going with a more traditional approach. I started off with a circle, and then I drew in the chin and everything. Of course, you should go very, very light at this stage because, you know, for obvious reasons, you don't want to make too many lines that you just won't be able to cover up later. Now, the goal of this challenge isn't only to learn to draw portraits with pen, it's also to do it well and get it accurate, you know? A tip I found that's really, really helpful for me to get my portraits accurate to the reference photo is when you're having trouble figuring something out, or the placement, or you just want to check how accurate your drawing is, what you do is you look really quickly back and forth between the reference photo and what you're drawing. You just go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and you do this over and over and over, and really, really fast. That's the main thing, is just go really, really fast. And little by little, it'll be like, you know, the stop motion animations where there are a ton of photos and you piece them together and then it looks like the character is moving. Well, in this case, you're sort of doing stop motion with your eyes though, because you're going back and forth from between the reference photo and your drawing. And so you'll start to notice things that just stick out to you, like maybe the cheek is too out, or the eyes are a little too high, or the nose might be either too wide or too long. You'll notice these things because it's like magic. It'll just stand out to you. Another tip I found that's pretty helpful for gaining accuracy in your drawings is this technique where you gauge the size of the facial features by comparing them to each other, if that makes sense. Like, for example, you understand the size of the ear because it starts at where the eyebrows are and it ends where the nose is. And the width of the ear you just measure and you're like, oh, turns out the width of the ear is, in this case, is actually the width of the eye. So you just compare that way. And I don't think there's a really logical structure to it. You just compare, and I mean, for me, it works. And it definitely, getting the size of your facial features down right is very important to having your drawing look like the reference photo and have a great likeness to it. And I think this portrait really did that effectively. So I'm really excited for you to see the end result. Another thing I'm trying to improve with this portrait compared to the previous ones is to really keep and be mindful of where you are, in what direction you're drawing your strokes. So when you have planes of the face, the planes all sort of face different directions, and there's movement, right, on the face. What I am doing is, let's say on the forehead, I have a more even crosshatch on top, but let's say on the nose, my lines are slanted because the nose is 3D and it's not flat. So you get what I mean? It's like, it's following the movement of the face, and I feel like it really succeeds in adding extra dimension to your portrait, and it looks so good. With this portrait, because of this, I'm really satisfied with just the crisp look of it. And as usual, we're filling in the eyes last. And with eyes though, you have to be really careful when filling them in. Keep in mind where the highlights are on the eyes. When you have the highlights in the right spot, the eyes see. So really look closely at your reference, and when you're doing the eyes, take your sweet time, because with eyes, your portrait comes alive. And if you get the eyes wrong, then in my opinion, the portrait loses its soul, and it's like the person isn't there inside, you know? There was such a huge progress over the course of this 4-day challenge. Imagine what that progress would be over a year. I have this portrait that I drew last year on my first portrait drawing challenge. It just goes to show that drawing consistently, not even every day, over the course of only a year can make a huge difference in your art.